Hi, I'm Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Book 101 Radio. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. One of his advocacy helping people over 40 lose weight and get fit so that they can live the lives they were meant to have. No other than Mr. Allan Misner.
Hey, great to be here.
Welcome, Mr. Allan. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I missed?
Okay, well, I was a corporate guy, and I worked my way up the corporate ladder, kind of the way we were told. This is the way it works, and you've succeeded if you make it to the C-suite before you're 40. And I did. I was 39 years old in the C-suite, so I'm making the money. I got the stock options. I've got the life, except I really didn't. My health was poor. My fitness was very poor. I was miserable, and I was just not really a good person. And so I didn't even like myself, if I'm being honest about it. And I knew I had to change, and so I started trying to change. And like a lot of people who've tried to change, you try and you fail, and you try and you fail, and you try and you fail. And I don't know what kept me at it, but 8 years later, I was still trying. And then it hit me one night, one morning actually, when my daughter and I were on the phone. I was actually in Malaysia in a hotel, and I was hungover, and I was overweight, unhappy, unfit, all the things. And my daughter said to me, "Daddy, would you come watch me do a CrossFit competition?" Now, for folks that aren't familiar with CrossFit, CrossFit is a very intense physical program, exercise program, but they have competitions. And so my daughter, who had just become a level one CrossFit coach, was going to go to this competition. And the question that I really had wanted her to ask was, "Would you come compete with me?" But obviously, I was not in the condition to do that. And she saw it, and I saw it. So it was kind of a kick in the gut because I never saw myself as a spectator in her life. Uh, I always thought I would be a participant, and here I was, the spectator. Now I did go. I didn't want to go, but I did go and watch her compete, and it was exciting to be there for her. But I wasn't who I should have been when I went there. And so this got me to thinking, why was health and fitness so hard? And I realized why is it harder than any other hard thing that I've ever done? Because I've done a lot of hard things at that point. You don't get to where I was without doing a lot of hard things. And then I realized it's not any harder. I just haven't really dedicated myself to it the way I did everything else great in my life. And that's when I made the commitment to change. Now, I still had a lot to figure out because I was traveling all the time. I was working all the time. My lifestyle was not conducive. If people talk about not having time to do things, I was home one weekend a month. Other than that, I was on the road traveling and doing my job. And so I figured out that I couldn't depend on myself at that point because I didn't know what to do. And I couldn't hire a coach because nobody was doing what I do today. There were no online coaches. So I decided to become my own coach, and I got certified. I got all the specialties and certifications that I needed to train me, someone over 40, because the things that were out there were just not appropriate for what I needed to accomplish. I built the tool set myself, and I don't encourage anybody else to do that because it's very expensive and took a ton of time. I was pretty much dedicated every day. Every minute I was not working, I was training, I was studying, I was trying to get myself better. And I did. And then so after about 11 months, I had lost 66 pounds of fat. I'd put on 11 pounds of muscle, which I can tell you for a 47-year-old is not all that easy. But I did it. And then I competed in a Tough Mudder with my daughter, which is a 12 and a half mile run through muddy environments, in a hospital environments, with just 25 obstacles thrown in for fun. And so it was a very challenging event, and I set myself up to do it with my daughter, and I was able to finish that race with my daughter. And that's one of the highlights of my life, and pretty much the time that I turned everything around. And so from that perspective, I realized there's still no one was talking about over 40 and how we have to train different. No one was talking about us, no one was helping us, and no one was available online to help people that were busy and traveling and doing the things that I was doing. So I decided to start the 40 Plus Fitness podcast. I started coaching online. I had a 5-year plan to leave my corporate job. Got laid off after two. So I went ahead and I decided I was going to go ahead and write a book. So I wrote The Wellness Roadmap, a straightforward guide to health and fitness after 40, for anyone that's over 40. And that book did well. And I've been coaching ever since. So 10 years with the podcast. Episode 715 went live this week. And then, of course, the book and the online coaching that I've been doing now for 10 years.
Well, I want that C-suite, Mr. Allen, emotionally, financially, and of course, everything in it. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So today let's talk about why most of us get motivation wrong and what you can do to fix that. So tell us, why is it waiting for motivation to strike a fundamentally flawed strategy, and what should we doing instead?
Okay, well, let me ask you, Daniel. Has there ever been anything you wanted to do and then you just found you kind of lacked the motivation or the willpower to follow through?
Yes, well, I want to create another podcast, but I have already 13 podcasts, and how can I do my 14 podcasts if I have a lot of podcasts to do? So my 14 podcasts, I have procrastinating to do it. So
Right, right. And see,
that's
so what happens is you say, okay, well, I'm gonna go ahead and get started on Monday. We're all going to get started on Monday. We're all going to get for health and fitness, particularly. We're going to get started January 1st, right? So maybe
okay.
you tell yourself, I'm going to launch this January 1st, and I'm going to record those first 3 episodes, and I'm going to have all this ready. But then you sit down to start doing the work, and the motivation's just not there.
Mm, okay.
And the thing is, we think of motivation as like this magic fairy dust, this thing that just steps in and helps us get things done when it's hard.
Yeah.
And that's not how motivation works. See, motivation requires doing first. And I know that sounds counterintuitive. If I'm not motivated, how am I going to do it? But let me kind of explain how this works. Okay.
Go
When
ahead,
you
Mr.
just
Allen.
when you decide you want to do something, you have access to motivation, and motivation comes in two forms. Okay. There's the external form, which is extrinsic, and there's the internal form, which is intrinsic. So I just want to make sure you understand those are the words I'm going to use, is extrinsic and
Mm,
intrinsic. The extrinsic we know as accountability. Okay. And within these motivation model, there's two levels. There's a leader level on the top, and then there's the social level on the bottom. So let's start with the extrinsic, because extrinsic is the easiest and fastest. Okay.
okay.
So at the leader level for extrinsic accountability, we can hire a coach. Okay. In the job, it's your boss. Your boss tells you he wants the report by Friday. You've got extrinsic motivation to get that report done by Friday. When you're a podcaster, you don't have that necessarily. But if you hired a coach to hold you accountable, that coach would make sure you were doing the things you needed to do to get that podcast done. Or in your health and fitness, that coach would make sure you're eating the way you say you're going to eat and you're doing the work that you say you're going to do. So that's very easy because you just hire a coach, right?
Yeah.
So you find a good coach and you hire them, and they help hold you accountable. And that's pretty good as long as you want to have that coach around. Okay. So it doesn't last as long as it could. At some point, you don't want to be paying the coach. I mean, you're 90 years old, you're going to stop paying the coach. Then there's the social level, which is groups and peers. Now, people think of peer pressure as a bad thing, but that just means there's bad peers. If you surround yourself with good peers, peer pressure is beautiful. It's wonderful. It's called accountability. Okay. So if we join a spin class or a fitness class or a water aerobics class, or we join a run club, If we surround ourselves or get ourselves into a mind, basically a mastermind of other people that want to launch a podcast, that might be a good group, because you're, as a group, going to hold each other accountable to get the things done. But again, that's extrinsic. It's outside of you. So it's outside your control a little bit. The coach could stop coaching, could retire, and now you don't have a coach. The group could stop doing what they're doing and disband. I had a client tell me one time, she told me she was going to walk 3 times a week. Okay, 30 minutes with her sister 3 times a week. And I noticed on Wednesday that she wasn't walking. She hadn't walked once, and it's Wednesday. So I messaged her and I said, "Hey, it's Wednesday and you haven't walked at all. What's going on?" And she said this. These are exact words that came out of her mouth. "My sister twisted her ankle, so I can't walk." See, the accountability let her down because it's not 100%. It's not that strong. It's good, but it's only as strong as you make it out to be. Now, what we want to do is we want to start moving our motivation to intrinsic, inside of ourselves. And that's called self-efficacy. Self-efficacy is a lot stronger, but it's harder to get to. It takes a lot more work. But if we've got a coach and we've got the group around us, our peers, then it's easier because we're already doing the thing. We're being held accountable. This is the perfect time to start building that self-efficacy. And we do that at the leader level. And at the leader level, that's known as self-management. Okay. Now, a lot of people think self-management is about discipline and that type of thing. It's not. What self-management does, what management does in any kind of business, is when there's a problem, they change up the system. They make it better and easier for the system to work the way it's supposed to, and harder for it to fail. That's what management does. Okay. So self-management is where you basically put friction between you and the things you don't want to do. So I don't want to snack. So what I make sure is there's no snacks in my pantry. If I want a snack, I have to go get one. I have to get in a car and go get one. I'm not going to do that. So I've made it harder to get something I don't want. So more friction. And I reduce friction off of things that I do want to do. So I make sure I have my gym bag packed and ready to go every night. So then in the morning, it's just ready. And I make sure that I have what I need to go to the gym. That removes friction from doing the thing I want to do. And if we continue to do that, we make it easier and easier to be successful. Now, over time, this moves down into the social level. And this is where things get really, really interesting, because at the social level, this is about habits and values. And so there's a point where maybe as a young person, you would go out and get drinks with your friend, not just on the weekends, but multiple nights a week. Okay. Well, that is not healthy. And you know that after time that I can't just keep doing that. So self-management says, okay, I got to figure out what nights, set some rules for myself, make it harder for me I don't want to go out on these nights, or that type of thing. And so you basically over time build values to say, no, I'm not the kind of person who hangs out in a bar. Or maybe you say, I'm going to be walking 3 or 4 times a week. And so now you start walking and you begin to build a habit. Okay, Monday, Wednesday, Friday is the day, evenings that I walk with my sister. And so those are the evenings that I get my walk in. And it becomes a habit. You wake up on Wednesday morning and it's like, okay, I got to get my shoes and everything ready so that when I get off work, I'm ready to go for that walk with my sister. Okay. The habits and values, though, are super valuable, because what happens there is you begin to change yourself internally. So I'll give you an example that I like to use. That the girl that does the walking 3 times a week, she's doing the walking with her sister. They're getting more and more stamina built. They decide to start adding little jogs. Let's jog to that fence post. Let's jog to that tree. And they start adding little jogs to their walk to make it a little bit harder. And so they're doing these little jogs, and then they realize that they're doing the 3 miles. They're mostly jogging at this point. Why not sign up for a 5K race? So they sign up for the 5K, they do it, they get the shirt, they get the medal, all the excitement of the crowd. They love it. They just love it. So they're signing up for another one. And now they're buying the shoes and the shorts and the stuff. And they now think of themselves as a runner. What do runners do, Daniel?
They run, run,
Right.
run.
So it's not unusual to wake up in the morning, put on your shoes, and go for a run. That's what runners do. They don't think about it. They don't have any reason to not do it because that's just them. And that's who they are. They identify as the runner, so they run. In fact, they're going to be upset if they injure themselves and can't run. They're going to be upset about it. And that's going to be hard for them because they've identified as a runner and now they can't do the thing that they identify as themselves doing. So when someone talks about discipline, what the person talks says, you just need more discipline. I can't do this. I can't do that. You hear that all the time in social media. And someone says, well, you just need more discipline. What the person's saying that they don't know that they're saying, because they did this back when they were 14. This guy walked into a gym with his buddies. So he already had the peer group. There was probably an older man in there, a guy in there that kind of mentored them a little bit. That's the coach, even if they didn't pay him. So they had a little bit of accountability there to go. And then they made it easier and easier to go. Let's I have my gym bag with me at school. I got this, I got to do. And so now they're basically making sure they've done some self-management to make it as easy as possible. And then it becomes a habit. They're doing it all the time. And then they begin to identify as a gym rat, a weightlifter, a bodybuilder, however they want to classify it. They now identify as that person. So to them, what comes natural, something they built back when they were 14, we may not have built, or we may not have built it around the thing we're trying to do now that's really, really hard. But here's the thing about things that are hard. If you're not doing hard things, you're not getting better. Okay. Um, within change requires you to get outside of your comfort zone. And if you look back, I promise you, there's nothing in your life that you've ever done that's beautiful and wonderful that you're proud of where you didn't have to go outside your comfort zone to make it happen. That's required. So you need to build yourself a full motivation model to be successful and be willing to go through that change and that hard thing and that outside the comfort zone thing if you really want to make great things happen in your life.
Mr. Allen, as a coach, what are your short-term and long-term goals?
I just want to help people. I realized when I was trying to go through this, and there was no one there. And there was no podcast, there were no books, there was nothing. And so, really, my big goal across all of this is to make sure that it does exist. That someone who's
Mhm.
over 40 and struggling and realizes they can't do the things when they were doing when they were in their 20s, but they're not ready for chair yoga. I want them to know there's something there. There's coaches there, and I'm happy to say today there are a lot more coaches coaching people specifically over 45, over 40, over 50. But when I started, there was none, and so really has been my goal to make sure that the resources are there for someone when they need it.
Well, good luck to your goals, Mr. Allen, and looking forward for more success and to help more people all over the world. And what would be your piece of advice for those people out there who want to be a coach like you?
Well, if you want to be a fitness coach, first you've got to make sure that you understand health and fitness so that you can help people, and that requires sometimes for you to work on yourself. But more than anything, go get the certifications and do that type of thing. Do a lot of reading. I read a lot, but you have to make sure that you're telling people the right things to do. And it's not necessarily what the mainstream puts out there today. There's a lot that's wrong with what's reported, if you will, in the media about health and fitness. So get out there, figure yourself out, get the education that you need, and then start working with people.
Yes, definitely. And thank you for that advice, Mr. Allen. And can you please recommend a book or books that influence your journey?
You know, I'm going to go back to the first one. I had not really read any self help books in my entire life until I took my first career job as a public accountant, and my boss recognized that I had some social skill problems back then. Still do, but the book was by Dale Carnegie, and it's called "How to Win Friends and Influence People." And I think that's a book that's worth reading practically every year.
Yes.
um, every time I read that book, there's something that comes out. And I'm like, yes, I needed to hear this year. So I would say that's a book that you just want to have on your bookshelf or on your e-reader, and you want to pull it up every year and go through it again.
Indeed, and thank you so much for that recommended book, Mr. Allen. And how can a simple act of starting comically small, just one paragraph or just 5 minutes, defeat the initial resistance that kills motivation?
Well, that's the point. Is a lot of people will go in and say, you know, I'm going to set a goal. I'm going to do this thing. Motivation can still wane, and so it's one of those things of knowing you have to be willing to be uncomfortable. You have to be willing to let go of the immediate this for the future that. And that's really hard. You know, they did the experiment with the kids where they could, I think it was marshmallows. They gave them one marshmallow and they said you can have if you hold this for a certain amount of time, you can have a second marshmallow.
Yeah.
And most of the kids ate the marshmallow and didn't get the second one. And they said the kids that had the second marshmallow did much better in life. And so what I would say is, uh, if you set a goal for yourself, that goal is intended to deliver the second marshmallow. So just remember there's a reward on the other end for the things you're forgoing today. So maybe a friend calls you up and says, "Hey, let's go out for drinks tonight just for fun." And you know you've got to work out early in the morning. Maybe it's worth saying no so you can be successful in the morning.
Mr. Allen, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people, my other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season. Abstract poetry in second season. I'm a book 101 review in fifth season too. Comedy 101 in second season. I'm a food 101 in fifth season as well. Geography 101 in fourth season. My baby podcast, Law 101 and Mental Health 101. Love letters in third season and Movie 101 Review and Music 101 and fourth season, and Science 101 and Sex 101 in its second season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Mr. Allen, instead of asking, "Am I motivated?" what is the better, more action oriented question we should ask ourselves when we don't feel like starting?
Well, again, I think the easiest way to make sure that motivation is there is to start with the extrinsic. Start with finding people to hold you accountable. If you need to hire a coach, join a group. It's not hard. There may be some expense to it, but you know, if you want to start running, join a running group, join a run club. If you want to start reading, join a book club. If you want to, you know, start focusing on your business, join a mastermind of other people that are going to hold you accountable to the things that you say you're going to do. That's the fastest, easiest way to get motivated to start. But don't stay there. Focus on the intrinsic. Try to make what you're doing a part of you so that it eventually becomes your identity and you don't even have to worry about it because you have infinite motivation for that particular thing.
Indeed, Mr. Allen Misner. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your business, your advocacy, or whatever projects that you're doing right now? Mr. Allen, where do people can reach you?
You can go to 40plusfitness.com. That's my primary website. Or if you really do like podcasts, because you're listening to this one, I'm 40 Plus Fitness Podcasts And you can find that wherever you're listening to podcasts here.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Allan Misner, because if you support him, sorry, more and more empowering episodes of the podcast, more and more empowering advocacy for coaching to come. So, Mr. Allan, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Daniel.
More to come, people. See you soon. So, Mr. Allan,